Maya Reed said, the first time I lied to my followers, I told myself it was harmless. The ring light hummed and my smile held like glue on cracked porcelain. I filmed and cut and filtered until truth looked obedient. The likes hit like sugar, then like glass. Lena Brooks texted, "Proud of you," and I believed her because belief was cheaper than doubt. Victor Hale said, "Numbers love confidence," and I borrowed his voice until mine sounded rented. Sloan Park posted a koi tease that smelled like my perfume. I laughed for the camera and swallowed the burn off camera. The comments praised a girl who was lighter, louder, cleaner than me. I said she is me, and the lie nodded back. The room shrank to a lens and my stomach learned to smile on command. I scrolled, I posed, I sold mornings I never lived. The ghost inside whispered, "They love a mask, not a mouth." I pressed record anyway and watched my face become a product. Tonight the glue slips. Tonight I tell you how the Collab ended more than a contract. It ended us. Maya Reed said, "They didn't follow me, they followed the version I invented." The room looks big on camera and small in person. I learned to frame joy while trimming silence. Applause emojis stacked like bricks and built a wall around me. I slept behind that wall because the bed outside felt cold. Lena Brooks said, "Take a day off," and I posted a day off instead. Victor Hale said, "Authenticity converts, so I scheduled my tears for golden hour." Sloan Park said, "Babe, transparency sells," and I tasted metal in the word sells. I told stories that never hurt because pain ruins brand safety. I told myself I was keeping people safe from my storm. The ghost asked why safety felt like an empty fridge. I scrolled until my thumb burned and the world shrank to a glow. I said, "If they love her, maybe they love me." The silence after the upload was the longest sound I knew. Maya Reed said, "Brands love neat edges," and I kept sanding mine down. I blurred the parts that bled and sharpened the parts that sold. The calendar became my conscience, and the caption my diary. Lena Brooks said, "You're vanishing in your own voice," and I laughed because the laugh fit the beat. Victor Hale said, "We scale or we stall," so I scaled my smile to bigger rooms. Sloan Park echoed me 2 minutes later, and the crowd cheered both of us. I stared at numbers because numbers never asked why. The ghost said the graph looked like a heartbeat pulled straight. I posted affirmations to convince myself they were true. I watched my face glow on screens while my hands shook off screen. I promised myself one honest post soon. Soon kept moving. Maya Reed said, "The Collab felt like a cure until it felt like a leash." The contract glimmered with bonuses and silence clauses. I smiled through the briefing while my stomach wrote warnings. Lena Brooks said, "Are you sure you want this?" And I said yes, because yes is lighter than maybe. Victor Hale slid the NDA across the table like a gift. Sloan Park posted a wink that read like a dare. I told my audience we were stronger together. I kept my doubts under captions about empowerment. The ghost knocked on the lid I nailed shut. I filmed the unboxing with hands that shook off frame. The product promised glow, and I dimmed to match the promise. Maya Reed said, when the first post hit, the applause felt like a rescue flare. It faded faster than I planned. My DMs bloomed with hearts and knives. Lena Brooks said, "Ignore the noise," and I tried, but the noise had my name on it. Victor Hale said, "Stay on script," and the script strangled my breath. Sloan Park stitched my reel with a laugh that bit. I filmed a follow-up and watched my eyes dodge themselves. The ghost whispered that the truth would cost more and hurt less. I opened a note and wrote one honest sentence. I hovered over post and thought about rent. The storm outside moved closer. I realized I had built a lighthouse that only lit me. Maya Reed said, "The comments weren't just noise anymore, they were knives. They sliced deeper than silence, cutting between my ribs each night. The brands demanded smiles, but I carried bruises, Inside captions. Lena Brooks said, "You need a break," but her tone cracked like she had practiced it in front of her mirror. Victor Hale said, "Don't let trolls own the narrative," but his eyes only counted impressions. Sloane Park reposted my clip with a sly caption, and my own audience laughed harder at hers. I tried to tell myself the storm would pass, but every post was gasoline on fire. The ghost whispered, "You're performing for people who want you to fall." I stayed awake, refreshing numbers like oxygen. I rehearsed apologies for mistakes I hadn't even made. I caught my reflection in the phone screen and almost didn't recognize her. I wondered if the world could smell fear through Wi-Fi. "Maya Reed," said the manager, framed everything as opportunity. He polished my doubt into slogans and sold them back to me. Victor Hale leaned forward, voice slick as glass, saying, "This backlash is engagement." I wanted to scream, but I nodded instead. Lena Brooks shifted in her chair, staring at me like she was balancing care and calculation. Victor tapped his pen and said, "We'll pivot, then spin it." The word spin felt like a centrifuge, hurling pieces of me across the room. Sloane Park texted during the meeting, "Row weak," with a smirk emoji. I smiled back, though my throat burned. The ghost whispered, "This is not survival, this is sacrifice." I signed the next contract with hands that shook. My signature looked like it belonged to a stranger. Maya Reed said, "Every brand brief sounded like a hymn I was forced to sing." I wore clothes they sent, painted with colors they chose, smiled in words they scripted. Victor Hale said, "Stick to the voice. It's what sells," and my own voice felt drowned. Lena Brooks said, "At least you're getting paid," but the words landed like iron. Sloane Park echoed my post almost word for word, and her comments filled with fire emojis. My audience compared us like gladiators in a pit. The ghost whispered, "You are no longer telling stories, you are reading ads." I laughed at a camera I didn't want to face. I built towers of reels that felt like tombstones. I wondered if my followers would notice if I disappeared. Maya Reed said, "I thought fans wanted me, but they wanted a reflection of themselves." Comments praised versions of me I didn't recognize. When I hinted at pain, they scrolled faster. Victor Hale said, "Don't show weakness, it's off-brand." Lena Brooks said, "But she's human," and he silenced her with a glare. Sloane Park posted, "Raw and real," but hers was filtered raw, staged real. My followers said, "Why can't you be more like her?" The ghost whispered, "They don't want you alive, they want you lit." I stared at my phone until the glow seared my retinas. I smiled at hearts, but they felt like knives flipped upside down. I thought maybe silence is the truest post I could make. Maya Reed said, "The mask grew tighter each day until I could barely breathe." My smile became muscle memory, not choice. Victor Hale kept saying, "Growth demands discipline," as if my ribcage wasn't already cracked. Lena Brooks said, "Maybe stop for a while," but she didn't push, she never pushed. Sloane Park posted collabs with my own sponsors, and the comments cheered her louder. I stayed awake writing captions that sounded alive, while I felt dead. The ghost whispered, "They'll never grieve the mask, only the silence after." I cried into my pillow and wiped my face before filming again. I wondered if honesty had a place left in this world. I pressed record, smiled, and hated the sound of my own voice. Maya Reed said, "The betrayal wasn't public at first, but it felt like the earth had tilted under me. I didn't know who to trust anymore." The more I scrolled, the less I recognized the world around me. Lena Brooks was the first to turn, just a slip at first, an innocuous comment about being real, a term I thought we owned. Victor Hale wasn't surprised, his face cold and calculating, as if he had been expecting it all along. I remember the meeting, a sterile conference room where I felt like I was being sold again. Sloane Park was in the background, always present but never seen. Her comments about my persona were always too close to the bone. The ghost whispered, "They made a monster out of you." I laughed because it didn't feel like a joke anymore. The mask had cracked, and the person beneath was too tired to pretend. I was slipping, and every follower felt like a reminder that they weren't following me. They were following the mask. Maya Reed said, "The first shot was fired from within my circle. I didn't expect it to come from Lena, the one person who had always called me a sister." The text message hit me like a hammer. "It's not personal, just business." The words were clinical, distant, and the betrayal tasted like iron. Victor Hale had set it up, his charm masking a power play. I had been blind to it for so long. Sloane Park had become an ally in a game I didn't even know I was playing. I read her post, a thinly veiled insult wrapped in a compliment, and for a second, I thought it was my fault. The ghost whispered, "You've been living in a house of glass, waiting for the stone." I replied to Lena's message with cold precision, but inside, my heart cracked like brittle porcelain. The damage was done, and no amount of apology could undo the fracture. Maya Reed said, "It wasn't just Lena, it was everything I had built crumbling." My brand felt like a house of cards, each post, each story, adding weight to a structure that was bound to fall. I was nothing but a product, my life sliced into pieces for consumption. Victor Hale saw me as an investment, and investments were disposable. Sloane Park capitalized on my cracks, weaving her brand through mine. And suddenly, we weren't just competitors. We were enemies. The ghost whispered, "Your empire was built on lies, and the walls are thin." I wanted to tear it all down, but I knew that even in the destruction, I would lose myself. The audience didn't care about truth. They cared about drama. And I was the drama. Maya Reed said, "When the truth hit the surface, I thought I could handle it. I was wrong." The audience didn't care about the truth behind the scenes. They wanted a scandal. Sloane Park released her video, detailing everything. Every betrayal, every mistake. It was my life, laid bare, but it wasn't me telling it. It felt like being buried under an avalanche of my own mistakes. Victor Hale's voice echoed in my head. "It's not personal, it's business." But it was personal. The ghost whispered, "You gave them everything, and now they want your soul." The messages flooded in, some sympathetic, others cruel. But all of them, every single one, was a reminder that I was just content to them. And content is disposable. Maya Reed said, "I thought silence was safer, but it only made it worse." I disappeared for days, hoping the world would forget. But they didn't forget, they waited. They wanted answers, they wanted more. And they wanted it from me. Lena Brooks called, her voice flat, offering half-hearted apologies. But I could hear the difference now. The ghost whispered, "You've been living for others. It's time to live for you." I wanted to scream, but all that came out was a hollow laugh. The followers weren't my friends. They were just a crowd, hungry for my mistakes. I was drowning in their expectations, and no matter what I said, it was never enough. Maya Reed said, "The truth doesn't set you free, it buries you." The silence was heavier than any cancellation. I thought I could handle the fallout, but it was a wave of whispers, a constant pulse of judgment. The phone never stopped buzzing. I deleted the app and installed it again, trying to fight the urge to check, but I couldn't. Every comment felt like an accusation, every text like a reminder that I was the villain in my own story. Lena Brooks tried to reach out, but I wasn't ready to hear it. Victor Hale stayed silent, as he always did, a cold strategist. Sloane Park posted another video, each frame built on my ruins. The ghost whispered, "You wanted freedom, but this is what it costs." I wanted to scream, to explain that I wasn't just a reflection of the world's desires, but no one would listen. The mask had shattered, and now, there was nothing left to hide behind. Maya Reed said, "I thought the storm would pass, but I was wrong." The aftermath of everything I had built felt like drowning in a sea of expectations. The audience didn't care about the reasons, they only cared about the drama. It was all they wanted from me. Drama, scandal, vulnerability. They fed on my pain, and I had let them. Victor Hale had disappeared from my life as easily as he had entered it. He always said he wanted power, but I never thought he'd use me to get it. Sloane Park, now rising to the top, used my fall as her stepping stone, and every post felt like a silent stab. Lena Brooks, my closest friend, stayed quiet, unsure if her apologies would fix the mess I had created. The ghost whispered, "They'll always use you, never love you." I realized that nothing would ever be enough for them, and nothing could fix what had already been broken. Maya Reed said, "I thought I could stay silent and let it all fade, but silence only made it worse. The longer I stayed quiet, the louder the voices became. It was like trying to outrun a storm that always caught up. The comments turned cruel, the accusations more pointed. I became the villain in my own narrative, a character I had never wanted to be. The ghost whispered, "You're only a villain because they told you so." It felt like I was trapped, suffocated by the digital world I had once controlled. I wanted to break free, but the chains were heavier than I imagined. I reached out to Sloane, desperate to understand how she could move on so easily, but her response was as cold as it was calculated. I realized then that I was no longer in control. The world had taken over, and I was just a spectator. Maya Reed said, "I thought I could rebuild, but I was starting from ruins." The digital world had already written my story, and there was no way to erase it. Each post, each comment was another brick in a wall I couldn't tear down. Sloane Park had already taken the spotlight, basking in the praise for my fall. I had become the cautionary tale everyone shared, the influencer who lost it all. I wanted to walk away, disappear from it all, but the pressure kept pulling me back. Lena Brooks asked if I was okay, but I couldn't answer her honestly. How could I? I was suffocating in my own lie. The ghost whispered, "You gave them everything, and they took it." I realized then that this wasn't just about fame or followers. It was about my identity, my truth, and how I had lost both. Maya Reed said, "In the end, I realized that the real collapse wasn't my career. It was me. I had built an empire of lies, and in the process, I had lost myself. It wasn't just the followers or the brands, it was the truth I had buried so deep inside me that I couldn't even find it anymore." The ghost whispered, "You wanted freedom, but it came too late." I knew then that the only way out was to face everything I had been running from. No more filters, no more lies, no more personas. Just me. The person I had hidden for so long. But the road ahead felt long, uncertain, and terrifying. The mask had to come off, but I wasn't sure who I would be once it did. Maya Reed said, "The emptiness isn't in the silence. It's in the lies I used to tell myself." After everything, the drama, the fallout, the betrayals, what I was left with wasn't an empty feed. It was an empty heart. I tried to rebuild, but it never felt right. The likes, the follows, they don't fill anything. I told myself I was fine, but the truth gnawed at me. Lena Brooks had stopped reaching out, and Victor Hale had disappeared. Sloane Park thrived, and I was left with a memory of who I used to be. The ghost whispered, "You were never the persona. You were the shadow it cast." The world had moved on, and I had been left behind. I could feel it now, the weight of pretending, the exhaustion of being someone I never really was. I wanted to fix it, to start fresh, but how could I when I didn't know who I was anymore? Maybe this was the price of fame, losing yourself in the mask. Maya Reed said, "I thought leaving it all behind would make me feel free, but it only made me feel more lost." The escape wasn't what I expected. There was no rush of relief, no freedom, only silence. The noise had stopped, but so had everything else. Lena called again, but I didn't pick up. I wasn't ready to explain myself, not to her, not to anyone. I spent days alone, wondering if I had done the right thing. Victor Hale's words echoed in my mind, "You're a brand, not a person." Sloane Park had moved on to the next big thing, and I couldn't blame her. The ghost whispered, "You gave them everything, and got nothing in return." I thought I wanted peace, but all I got was an unbearable quiet. I realized that no matter where I went, the echoes of my past would follow. Maya Reed said, "Maybe the real escape isn't from the world, it's from myself." I had spent years building a world around me, and in the end, it was all made of sand. The harder I tried to hold on, the faster it slipped through my fingers. The world didn't want the real me, it wanted a story. A story I couldn't stop telling, even though I was the one trapped inside it. The ghost whispered, "You can't outrun the truth forever." Maybe the only way to move forward was to face everything I had been running from. I didn't know how to do it, or even where to start. But for the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid. The mask was gone, and I didn't need to hide anymore. Maya Reed said, "I thought fame was about connection, but in the end it was about isolation. I had millions of followers, but no one to talk to. I was the most connected person in the world, but I felt the loneliest. I tried to reach out, but every message felt like it was filtered through a screen, hollow and disconnected." The ghost whispered, "You were never meant to be an idol." It was true. I had been living in a fantasy of my own making. Maybe fame isn't about being seen. It's about seeing yourself for who you truly are. The world didn't need a perfect version of me. It needed the real one. I couldn't hide anymore. I couldn't pretend. I had to be true to myself. Maya Reed said, "Maybe this is the part where I walk away, but it's not the end." I realized that the real journey wasn't about escaping my past. It was about learning from it. The followers, the brand, the fame, they were never the answer. The truth was the answer, even if it was painful. I'm not perfect, and I don't have all the answers, but I'm learning. The ghost whispered, "You are more than what they made you." For the first time in years, I felt free. Not because I was famous, but because I was finally being honest. The mask had fallen, and what was left was me. Maybe that's enough. Maya Reed said, "I thought deleting everything would bring peace, but it only brought silence." The screen went dark, and for the first time in years, I wasn't connected. But silence was louder than the noise. It screamed at me, filling every corner of my mind. I deleted the apps, the photos, the reminders of a life I could never return to. The ghost whispered, "You can't run from the past, but you can stop feeding it." I turned off my phone and stared at the empty space. There were no notifications, no comments, no eyes on me, and for a brief moment I could breathe. The world wasn't watching anymore, but neither was I. There was no applause, no validation, just me. But the silence felt heavier than all the likes I had once craved. I had been living for them, not for myself. Maya Reed said, "It wasn't the cancellation that broke me, it was the quiet." The comments stopped coming, and the followers faded into nothingness. I thought I wanted peace, but it felt like being buried alive. People say they want freedom, but what happens when the cage is gone, and there's nothing to hold you? The ghost whispered, "Freedom is nothing without purpose." I tried to fill the void with something, anything, but everything felt empty. The phone sat untouched, and I realized I didn't know how to be without the noise. It was like an old friend I had spent years with, and now I had to live without it. The weight of the silence pressed in on me, but it was the only truth I had left. Maya Reed said, "Maybe I've been looking for validation in the wrong places. For so long I thought I needed the approval of strangers to feel whole. But now I see that the only approval I need is my own." The pressure to perform, to live for the likes, it consumed me, made me forget who I really was. The ghost whispered, "You are more than their applause." It's hard to let go of something that's been your whole world, but sometimes you have to. I realized that self-worth doesn't come from others, it comes from within. I had been living for them, the audience, and I had forgotten how to live for myself. I wasn't the persona I built, I was more than that. But I had to find out who I really was first. Maya Reed said, "I thought I had lost everything, but maybe I've been finding myself all along." As the digital world faded away, I began to see what was left behind. I had spent years chasing an illusion, and now that it was gone, I felt a strange sense of relief. The ghost whispered, "You don't need the mask to be seen." I wasn't empty, I wasn't broken. I was just starting to figure out who I was beneath it all. The followers, the fame, the camera, it was all just noise. What mattered was real connection, with myself, and with others who saw me for who I truly was. I was finally starting to understand that the only validation I needed was my own. Maya Reed said, "I don't need the spotlight anymore. I just need to be real. The world can keep moving, the noise can keep growing, but I'm done running after it. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time, I'm okay with that." The ghost whispered, "You've always known who you were. I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to be an influencer. I just need to be myself." The journey isn't about finding fame or validation. It's about finding peace within. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it's more than enough. I'm ready to walk this path, wherever it leads. Maya Reed said, "I thought I'd have the answers by now, but I don't. The fame, the followers, it was never about that. It was about peace. But now it's time to leave it all behind. I don't need the screen or the applause anymore. I'm enough without them." Maya Reed said, "The world doesn't stop, but I don't have to keep chasing it. I deleted everything, but the silence felt like a weight. It's not fame I needed. It was to be seen for who I really am. The journey isn't about perfection, just truth." Maya Reed said, "Maybe I've been searching for validation in all the wrong places. I've realized I don't need the world's approval. I just need to be myself. I was never meant to be a persona. I was meant to be real." Maya Reed said, "I thought I had to be someone else to be loved, but I've learned that I'm enough as I am. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be true to myself, and that's enough." Maya Reed said, "I thought I needed to be unforgettable, but now I know I just need to be at peace. This is my last post. I'm walking away because I've said everything I needed to say to myself. From now on, I'll just be Maya.